Welcome back to Rank and File Sports with Jonah and Connor. Today we're going to be continuing our schedule previews with the Oklahoma Sooners. But before we get into the video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to comment down below your thoughts on how Oklahoma will do in 2025. Taking a look at the schedule, 3 out of the 4 non-conference games should be really easy. You got one tricky matchup at home against Michigan, especially early on in the season with both teams having new quarterbacks. That is going to be a heck of a game. SEC play, as usual, is going to be really, really difficult. Second year of the conference for Oklahoma. And you got matchups against Texas, road trips to South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, as well as LSU and Ole Miss at home. Not going to be easy whatsoever. Overall, you got 7 games at home, though, so still a majority there. 4 on the road, 1 neutral site with Texas at the Cotton Bowl, and an overall schedule difficulty of 8.5 out of 10.
Starting off, like Jonah was saying, non-conference game against Illinois State should be very easy for the Sooners to get a win in that one. John Mateer's first game in a Sooners uniform should be an easy victory at home. Then Michigan is coming to town. Should be a very interesting game between a huge brand of the Big Ten and the SEC, now the SEC, with the Sooners and the Wolverines. We saw Michigan did not perform very well last year when they hosted Texas, and now they're going on the road to face the Sooners. Should be a little bit more interesting of a game. Obviously, Bryce Underwood is a big story for the Wolverines, facing off against John Mateer, who, like Jonah was saying, is going to be one of the better quarterbacks this year, was one of the most sought after quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Considering this game is at home for the Sooners, and this will be Bryce Underwood's second game, most likely, and it's going to be in an SEC environment, we're going to favor the Sooners in this one, giving them a 55% chance to get a huge victory early in the season against Michigan. Following week, they go on the road to face Temple. Temple is not a very good team. They were towards the bottom of the FBS last season. They're probably going to be in the same position, 100% chance for the Sooners in that one as well. Then a big, I wouldn't call it a rivalry game, but it is a revenge game, considering that the Auburn Tigers have the former Oklahoma quarterback in Jackson Arnold, who is most likely going to be the starter there after he transferred. But Auburn, despite having a lot of hype surrounding them with a good transfer portal and a huge recruiting class, I think they're probably a year out with how many young guys they have bringing in. And with John Mateer leading this Oklahoma offense after a okay season last year, I do think they're going to be a much better team than they were. So I like the Sooners in this one, giving them a 75% chance to get a win there going into their first bye week.
The last non-conference game for Oklahoma is going to come right before one of their biggest matchups of the season in typical SEC fashion. Kent State should be a 100% chance for Oklahoma to win before going to the Cotton Bowl to play the Texas Longhorns. Texas obviously had a much better season last year than Oklahoma. This season, they have Arch Manning at quarterback, one of the most highly touted recruits from 2 years back. Played a couple games last year, and he was pretty solid. He has a lot of hype coming into this season. Texas overall should be favored in this game. Even though it's a neutral site, we're giving the Longhorns a 75% chance to win. After that, they're going on the road to face South Carolina, another very, very surprising team from last season. The Gamecocks ended up going 9-3 in the regular season, and were arguably a missed call against LSU away from making the college football playoffs. That being said, they finished the year with a loss to Illinois in a bowl game, but still had a very, very solid year. Overall, South Carolina is going to be a really solid team this season with the home field advantage. We don't have a ton of faith in the Sooners in this matchup, giving them only a 20% chance to win. Back at home to face Ole Miss. That one's going to be about a 65% chance for Oklahoma to win. You might be thinking that's a little bit high, but the The Rebels lost a lot from last season, including Jackson Dart, as well as a lot of other production. So we are not too high on this Ole Miss team. They have some young players that have some hype surrounding them, so they could turn out to be really solid, which is why we're going to stick this one still in Oklahoma's favor, but only at about 65%. Then going on the road to face another college football playoff team in the Tennessee Volunteers. The Volunteers are returning Nico Iamaleava at quarterback, and overall going to be a really solid team going all the way to Neyland Stadium. This one about a 30% chance for a Sooners victory.
Out of their second bye week, they will be going on the road to face Alabama. Alabama obviously looking to avenge their loss to Oklahoma last season, which was pretty embarrassing, and they didn't look like they stood much of a chance in that game, even though Oklahoma was a 500 team. Alabama's an interesting team to watch over the spring and going into the summer with a huge quarterback battle going on. I believe Ty Simpson is the favorite right now, or at least it's his spot to lose, considering he's been at the program for the last two seasons and was the backup to Jalen Milroe last year. But I know Alabama recruits very well, and they're going to have someone who will run this offense very well considering that this game is this far into the season and at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Alabama should have things figured out. And despite what we may think about this Oklahoma team being a lot more competitive, probably a better team than they were last year, I think Alabama is going to be completely retooled and is going to be a threat that we are used to seeing from an Alabama team. Kalen DeBoer is going to get it done next season, giving Alabama an 85% chance to get that win at home, only a 15% chance for the Sooners in this one. Then they're hosting the Missouri Tigers. Missouri obviously losing both Brady Cook at quarterback and Luther Burden at wide receiver, big focal points in their offense. Last season, they were kind of a mediocre team, at least is what I would say. I know that the record doesn't really show that, but they didn't really wow me in many of their games. I felt like they were kind of a lackluster team compared to the top 10 team that we saw 2 years ago that beat the Buckeyes in that bowl game at the Cotton Bowl. Um, so in this one, I'm not really thinking that Mizzou is going to be that good. I think they have Penn State's backup quarterback coming in as their starter, and he did show some signs of being a good starter against Wisconsin when Drew Aller went down with an injury. But I think at the end of the day, John Mateer is going to be the difference maker, and the Sooners are going to get the job done here, giving them a 70% chance to get that win at home. And finally, they finished the season off against LSU. LSU is probably one of the favorites to make a deep playoff run next season because of how much returning production they have. Biggest story is Garrett Nussmeier is back at quarterback and is looking to win a Heisman Trophy next season. One of the favorites to do so, along with Arch Manning for Texas. So this is going to be a really interesting game, especially this late in the season. I think there might be some stuff at stake. LSU is probably going to be looking to get one more win before going into the playoffs, or if they were to lose, it's probably going to be the difference maker in that one. And Oklahoma is, I think, probably going to be in a bowl game at this point, but if they're not, this would be a huge game to get them to bowl eligibility. So I think this is going to be a really competitive game. And with it being at Oklahoma, they might have a little bit of a chance to pull off the same miracle they did against Alabama. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the experience in the same system, which is what Garrett Nussmeier has with Brian Kelly as his head coach at LSU. So I like the Tigers in this one, giving Oklahoma a 25% chance to finish the season with a win.
Yeah, this just overall looking at the schedule, in my opinion, early season is key. Obviously, those 300% matchups, they're going to have to win all three of those. But getting that Michigan win, and if they can get the Auburn win, starting off 5-0, Oklahoma looks really good to make a bowl game despite having a brutal end to the season. They'd only need to pick up one win in those games. And as you can see, we got them favored in Ole Miss and Missouri. Personally, I think Oklahoma is going to drop maybe one game that they shouldn't, but also pick up a win that might surprise somebody. So I personally like the Sooners at 7-5.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think they're going to build on what they had last season. I think they're going to be a little bit of over a 500 team, and I think they're going to be a lot more competitive than they were last year. Um, like you were saying, I think this team might end up dropping one game early on or to a team that they really shouldn't. But in either that LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, or Texas game, I think they got shots in those ones. I think their offense is going to be at a level that can compete with those big SEC schools. But I do think that maybe one or two wins more from last season is a reasonable expectation. Maybe they hit a rough stretch with all of these really top dog SEC teams and maybe end up finishing around 500 again. But I have faith in this Sooners team, and I think they're going to show the college football world that they're not to be messed with.
Yeah, I definitely think they're probably going to end up pretty close to 500. Like I said, around 7-5, just because this schedule is so difficult. But that's not to say that they will not be an improved team from last season, like you're saying. Last year, the Sooners did go 6-7. Our projected win total is actually 6.8 wins, and we're going to go ahead and take the number closest to that at 7-5, like we were just saying. Vegas over under is at 6.5 and dead even for the over and the under. So we're pretty much right with everybody else on Oklahoma. We think they're going to be about a 7-win team. Maybe they'll surprise us. It really depends on how much better this offense can be. And also, can the defense slow down some of those top offenses they're going to face? That being said, we're going to go with 7-5 as our way too early prediction for the Sooners. So please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.